Korean Mafia boss kicked out the pregnant nanny until a black boy with his eyes screamed, "Daddy." Welcome back to the channel. If you are new here, take a second to subscribe and hit that notification bell so you never miss a story like this one. Drop a comment below and tell us what state or country you are watching from. We love hearing from you. Now let us dive into this incredible story. Seoul, South Korea, a city where neon lights mask ancient secrets and where power flows through shadows most people never see. And in those shadows, one name echoed with absolute authority: Kang Jae-won. At 32 years old, Jae-won had become the youngest leader the Baekho syndicate had ever known. His ascent to power had been carved through betrayal and sealed in blood. They called him the Phantom of Gangnam because when he decided someone needed to vanish, they simply ceased to exist. But power, as he had learned through bitter experience, was a throne built for one. His penthouse crowned one of Seoul's most imposing towers, a fortress of glass and steel that surveyed the city he commanded. 63 floors above the chaos of ordinary life, Jae-won existed in calculated silence. Everything around him was controlled, measured, precise, everything except her. Park Soo-min arrived at the Kang residence on a gray Tuesday morning, clutching a worn folder with her employment papers. She was 26 years old, dressed in simple clothes, her tired eyes carrying the weight of sleepless nights and impossible burdens. The agency had sent her as a replacement after the previous housekeeper fled without notice. Nobody lasted long in the Kang household. The whispers about the owner were enough to make most people run before they even started. But Soo-min could not afford to run. She needed this position more than she needed her pride, more than she needed her safety. What she carried in her heart and what she carried in her body was worth any risk. The elevator opened directly into the penthouse, and Soo-min stepped into a world she had only glimpsed in magazines. Floor-to-ceiling windows revealed the sprawling cityscape below. The furniture was minimal but impossibly expensive, all clean lines and muted colors. Even the air felt different here, purified somehow, as if the atmosphere itself understood its place in the hierarchy. A man in a crisp black suit approached her. His face was neutral, unreadable. "You are the new housekeeper," he said. His voice was cold, efficient. Soo-min bowed deeply. "Yes, Park Soo-min. The agency sent me." The man studied her for a long moment. "I am Secretary Yoon. I manage Mr. Kang's household affairs. You will follow the rules exactly as I explain them. There will be no second chances. Do you understand?" "Yes, sir." Secretary Yoon handed her a printed sheet. "These are your duties and restrictions. Mr. Kang values his privacy above all else. You will not speak to him unless spoken to. You will not enter his study under any circumstances. You will not ask questions about his business. You will not have visitors. You will not use your phone during working hours. You will not—" "I understand," Soo-min interrupted quietly. "I am here to work, nothing more." Secretary Yoon's eyebrow twitched slightly at the interruption, but he said nothing. He simply nodded and gestured for her to follow. The tour of the penthouse took 20 minutes. The kitchen was a marvel of modern technology. The living areas were pristine. The guest rooms appeared never to have been used, and at the end of a long hallway, a heavy wooden door remained firmly closed. "The study," Secretary Yoon said. "You do not clean it. You do not touch it. You do not look at it. Understood?" Soo-min nodded. "Understood." "Good. Mr. Kang is rarely home during the day. Your shift begins at 6 in the morning and ends at 8 in the evening. You will have Sundays off. Your quarters are in the service area behind the kitchen. Is everything clear?" "Yes, sir." "Then you may begin." And just like that, Park Soo-min's new life began. But what Secretary Yoon did not know, what no one in that gleaming tower knew, was that Soo-min carried a secret that grew heavier with each passing day. She was 4 months pregnant, hiding her condition beneath loose uniforms and careful posture. The father was a man she had met only once, a man who had vanished from Korea before she even knew she was carrying his child. For the first 2 weeks, Soo-min barely saw her employer. Kang Jae-won was a ghost in his own home, leaving before dawn and returning well past midnight. She only knew he existed from the evidence he left behind: a coffee cup in the sink, a jacket draped over a chair, the faint scent of expensive cologne that lingered in certain rooms. She cleaned, she cooked, she maintained the penthouse in perfect order, and when her shift ended, she retreated to her small room and counted the days until her first paycheck, all while pressing a hand to her growing stomach and wondering how much longer she could hide the truth. But if Soo-min thought she was invisible in the Kang household, She was mistaken. Jae-won noticed her from the very first day. He had watched her through the security cameras as she entered his home, had studied the way she bowed too deeply, the way her hands trembled slightly as she accepted the rules from Secretary Yoon. He had expected another nervous, disposable employee who would flee within a month, but there was something different about this one. It was in her eyes. Behind the exhaustion, behind the careful submission, there burned a fire, a determination, a secret. Jae-won had built his empire on reading people, on identifying their weaknesses and exploiting them. He could smell a lie from across a room. He could sense betrayal before it was even conceived, and everything about Park Soo-min told him she was hiding something. The question was what? The first time they spoke was 3 weeks after her arrival. Soo-min was in the kitchen at 5:30 in the morning, preparing breakfast as she always did. She had learned that Jae-won preferred traditional Korean breakfast, simple dishes made with precision. She was arranging the banchan when she felt a presence behind her. She turned and froze. Kang Jae-won stood in the doorway, watching her. He was dressed in a dark suit, his black hair perfectly styled, his face betraying nothing. But his eyes, those cold, calculating eyes, seemed to pierce right through her. "You are early," he said. His voice was low, smooth, dangerous. Soo-min bowed quickly. "I apologize if I disturbed you, sir. I did not realize you were home." "I am always home." She did not know what to say to that, so she said nothing. Jae-won moved into the kitchen, and Soo-min instinctively stepped back. He noticed. Of course he noticed. He noticed everything. "You have been here 3 weeks," he said, pouring himself a cup of coffee from the pot she had prepared. "Most housekeepers do not last that long. I need the job, sir." "Why?" The question was simple, but the weight behind it was immense. Soo-min felt her heart rate increase. She had prepared for this, had rehearsed her answers 100 times. "I have debts to pay," she said carefully. "Family obligations." Jae-won sipped his coffee, studying her over the rim of the cup. "Family obligations," he repeated. "That is a very vague answer." "It is the truth, sir." "Is it?" Silence stretched between them. Soo-min kept her eyes lowered, her hands clasped in front of her, positioned carefully to hide any hint of her changing body. She could feel him analyzing her, dissecting her, searching for the crack in her armor. Finally, he set down his cup. "Breakfast looks good," he said, and then he was gone, leaving her alone with her racing heart and trembling hands. After that morning, Jae-won began to appear more frequently. At first it seemed coincidental. He would be in the living room when she came to dust. He would pass through the kitchen while she was cooking. He would return from his study just as she was finishing the hallway. But there was nothing coincidental about Kang Jae-won. Secretary Yoon noticed the change immediately. In the 5 years he had served the Kang family, he had never seen Jae-won show interest in any of the household staff. They were invisible to him, interchangeable, disposable. But now his employer was asking questions. "The new housekeeper," Jae-won said one evening, not looking up from his documents. "What do you know about her?" Secretary Yoon consulted his tablet. "Park Soo-min, 26 years old, born in Busan, moved to Seoul 4 years ago. No criminal record, no known affiliations. She worked at a restaurant before the agency hired her. Her references were satisfactory. Family, parents deceased. No siblings according to her file. She listed no emergency contacts." Jae-won frowned slightly. No emergency contacts, no family, no connections. On paper, Park Soo-min was exactly what she appeared to be, a lonely young woman trying to survive in a harsh city. But Jae-won had not survived this long by trusting paper. "Have her followed," he said. Secretary Yoon hesitated. "Sir, if I may ask, is there a specific concern?" Jae-won finally looked up, and there was something in his eyes that Secretary Yoon could not quite identify. It was not suspicion, not entirely. It was something else, something that looked almost like curiosity. "No specific concern," Jae-won said. "I just want to know who is living in my home." "Understood, sir. I will arrange surveillance immediately." The reports began arriving within days. Park Soo-min left the penthouse every Sunday at precisely 9 in the morning. She took the subway to a neighborhood in the eastern part of Seoul, a modest area far from the gleaming towers of Gangnam. She would enter a small building and not emerge for several hours. "It is an apartment complex," Secretary Yoon reported. "Unit 402. The lease is under the name Kim Yoon-ji." "Who is Kim Yoon-ji?" "We are still investigating." Jae-won leaned back in his chair, turning a pen over in his fingers. "What else?" "She visits a pharmacy twice a week. The purchases are unusual. Prescription medications, but the quantities suggest they are not for her." "What kind of medications?" Secretary Yoon checked his notes. "Primarily treatments associated with chronic illness, heart conditions specifically. And there is something else. She has also been purchasing prenatal vitamins." The pen stopped moving in Jae-won's hand. His eyes sharpened. prenatal vitamins. Yes, sir. Consistently for the past several weeks. A long silence filled the room. Jae-won's mind worked through the implications. A pregnant housekeeper hiding her condition. Medical purchases for someone with heart problems. Secret visits to an apartment under another name. Continue the surveillance, he said finally. I want to know everything. Soo-min was unaware that she was being watched. She moved through her days with the same careful routine, cleaning and cooking and maintaining the perfect silence that Mr. Kang seemed to require. She wore her loosest uniforms and held herself in ways that concealed her growing belly. Most days, she succeeded, but on Sundays, she allowed herself to be someone else. She would wake early and choose her nicest clothes, nothing fancy but clean and bright. She would take the subway across the city, watching the neighborhoods change from wealthy to modest to worn. And when she finally reached that small apartment on the 4th floor, she would become the person she truly was. Soo-min Uni. The door flew open and a small body crashed into her legs. Soo-min laughed, the first genuine sound of joy she had made all week. Hello, my precious one, she said, kneeling down to embrace the child. Have you been good this week? The little girl, barely 5 years old, nodded enthusiastically. I helped Grandma make soup, and I learned a new song at school. Want to hear it? I want to hear everything. Soo-min lifted the child into her arms and carried her inside, where an elderly woman was rising slowly from a chair. Kim Yoon-ji was 72 years old, and the toll of her illness was evident in her thin frame and pale complexion. But her eyes were warm as she watched the two young women embrace. You are too thin, Yoon-ji said immediately. Are they not feeding you at that job? I am fine, Grandma. Please sit down. You should not be standing so much. I am old, not dead. I can stand in my own home. But she sat anyway, and Soo-min noticed the slight wince she tried to hide. The heart condition was getting worse. The medications were barely maintaining stability. The doctors had been clear. Without proper treatment, without a surgery that cost more money than they would ever have, Yoon-ji's time was limited. And so Soo-min worked. She worked in a place that scared her, for a man who terrified her, because this woman and this child were all she had left in the world. Yoon-ji was not her grandmother by blood. Soo-min's parents had died when she was 15, victims of a factory accident that had also killed 3 other workers. No compensation was ever paid, no justice was ever served. Soo-min had been alone, homeless, starving, when Yoon-ji found her sleeping in a park. The old woman had taken her in without question, had fed her, clothed her, sent her to school, had loved her when no one else would. And the child, this beautiful little girl named Ha-eun with her mother's eyes, she was the daughter of Yoon-ji's own granddaughter, a young woman who had died in childbirth 3 years ago. The father had vanished long before the baby was born. And so the 3 survivors, an old woman with a failing heart, a young orphan with nothing to offer, and a motherless child, had become a family. Did you bring the medicine? Yoon-ji asked quietly. After Ha-eun had run off to find a drawing she wanted to show Soo-min. Soo-min nodded, pulling a small bag from her purse. It is getting harder to afford, she admitted. But I got this month's supply. You are working too hard. And in your condition, Soo-min's hand went instinctively to her stomach. I am fine, Grandma. The baby is fine. I am being careful. Yoon-ji's eyes glistened. You should not have to carry this burden alone. The father is gone. Soo-min's voice was firm but not bitter. He does not know. He cannot know. It was one night, Grandma. One beautiful, impossible night with a man who was in Korea for business, an American. He left the country before I even knew I was pregnant. I have no way to contact him. Do you want to find him? Soo-min was quiet for a long moment. Sometimes, she admitted. Sometimes I wonder what he would say, what he would do, but it does not matter. I have you. I have Ha-eun, and soon I will have this little one. That is enough. That has to be enough. Yoon-ji reached out and took her hand. I worry about you, child. That place you work. Those people. I have heard stories. Stories are just stories, Grandma. I clean a rich man's house. That is all. Is it? Soo-min forced a smile. It is. Now tell me about Ha-eun's school. Did she pass her test? The subject was changed, but the worry in Yoon-ji's eyes remained. Jae-won read the final surveillance report in his study. The door locked, the room silent. Park Soo-min was not what she appeared. She was not a simple housekeeper with debts to pay. She was a pregnant woman carrying an impossible burden, supporting an elderly woman who was not her relative, and a child who was not her daughter, spending everything she earned on medicine and rent and school fees. She was working herself to exhaustion for people who had no claim on her except love, and she had never said a word about any of it. There was more in the report. The father of her unborn child was unknown, but witnesses from her previous job remembered a night almost 5 months ago when Su Min had attended a charity gala as a server. She had been seen talking with an American businessman for hours, the two of them eventually disappearing into the garden until sunrise. The man had left Korea the next day on emergency business. He had never returned. Jae-won set down the report and stared at the wall. In his world, everyone had an angle. Everyone wanted something. Loyalty was bought, and love was a weakness to be exploited. He had learned these lessons early and had built his life around them. But this woman, this ordinary, exhausted, stubborn, pregnant woman, she confused him. Why would she sacrifice so much for people who were not even her family? Why would she work in a place that clearly frightened her without ever complaining? Why would she hide a pregnancy rather than use it to gain sympathy or advantage? Why did she have such fire in her eyes when she should have been broken by life years ago? He wanted to understand her. No, he needed to understand her. Because if she was truly what she appeared to be, then she was something Jae-won had long stopped believing existed. Something good. The next morning, Jae-won found Su Min in the kitchen as usual. But this time, instead of leaving after a few cold words, he sat down at the table. She froze mid-motion, the ladle suspended over a pot of soup. "Sir, is something wrong with the breakfast?" "Sit down," he said. "I am sorry." "Sit down." It was not a request. Su Min set down the ladle with trembling hands and lowered herself into the chair across from him. She kept her eyes on the table, her heart pounding, one arm resting protectively across her midsection. Jae-won studied her for a long moment. "How long have you been taking care of them?" The color drained from her face. I do not know what you mean, sir." "Kim Yoon-ji, the child Ha-eun. How long?" Su Min's hands clenched in her lap. This was it. He knew everything. She had been so careful, but he knew, and now she would lose her job, and then she would lose them. "Please," she whispered, "please do not fire me. I will work harder. I will do anything. I need this job. I am not going to fire you." She looked up, shocked. Jae-won's face was as unreadable as ever, but there was something in his voice that had not been there before. Something almost soft. 10 years, she said finally. "I have been taking care of Grandma Yoon-ji for 10 years. Ha-eun came 3 years ago when her mother died. They are not my blood, but they are all the family I have." The words hung in the air between them. "And the pregnancy," Jae-won said quietly. "How far along are you?" Su Min's breath caught. She considered lying. But what was the point? He already knew everything else. 4.5 months, she whispered. "The father?" She shook her head. "He does not know. He was only in Korea for one night." "An American businessman at a charity event where I was working. We talked until sunrise. It was like nothing I had ever experienced. Like we had known each other in another life. And then he was gone. Called back to America for some emergency. I never saw him again. I did not even have a way to contact him." Jae-won felt something shift in his chest. Something he could not identify and was not sure he wanted to. "Why did you not put any of this on your application?" he asked. "A sick relative, a child, a pregnancy. These things would have made you a more sympathetic candidate." Su Min shook her head. "People do not want employees with complications. I have been turned down from jobs before because they thought I would be unreliable, that I would miss work or be distracted. I could not risk it again. Not when Grandma needs surgery. Not when Ha-eun needs school fees. Not when this baby needs everything. So you lied." I omitted. "There is a difference." A ghost of a smile crossed Jae-won's face. "Is there?" Su Min met his eyes for the first time since sitting down. "Yes. Lying is saying something false. Omitting is just not saying everything true. I never lied to you, Mr. Kang. I do have debts. I do have obligations. I just did not explain why." Jae-won leaned back in his chair. This woman, this simple housekeeper, this pregnant woman carrying the weight of 3 generations on her shoulders. She was arguing semantics with the head of the Baekho syndicate. She should have been begging for forgiveness, for mercy. Instead, she was defending her honor with the same fire he had seen in her eyes from the very first day. "The old woman is sick," he said. "Yes. The treatments are expensive. Yes. Your salary is not enough." Su Min's jaw tightened. "I am managing." "Are you?" She did not answer because they both knew the truth. She was not managing. She was drowning. Every month was a calculation of which bills to delay, which meals to skip, which medicines were absolutely essential. She was one emergency away from losing everything. Jae-won stood. "Come with me." "Sir, now." He walked out of the kitchen without waiting to see if she would follow. After a moment of hesitation, she did. He led her through the penthouse to the heavy wooden door at the end of the hallway. The study. The forbidden room. Secretary Yoon's warnings echoed in her head as Jae-won pushed open the door and gestured for her to enter. Su Min stepped inside and stopped. She had expected. She did not know what she had expected. Weapons, perhaps. evidence of crimes, something dark and terrible that matched the rumors about this man. Instead, she found a library. The walls were lined with books. Hundreds of them, maybe thousands. The shelves reached the ceiling with a rolling ladder to access the highest volumes. A large desk sat near the window, neat and organized, with a single lamp and a leather chair, and on the desk, a photograph. Jae-won noticed where her eyes had landed. "My mother," he said. "She died when I was 12. Soo-min looked at the photo, a beautiful woman with kind eyes, her arm around a young boy who had not yet learned to hide his emotions. She was sick for a long time. Jae-won continued. "My father refused to get her proper treatment, said it was too expensive, said she was weak." His voice was flat, controlled, but Soo-min could hear the ancient rage beneath the surface. "I promised myself that I would never let money be the reason someone I cared about suffered." He turned to face her. "I am going to pay for the old woman's treatment." Soo-min stared at him. "What? Her surgery? Her medications? Everything. I will pay for it." I do not understand. "Why would you?" "Because I can. Because you work for me, which makes your problems my problems. Because—" He stopped, something flickering across his face. "Because you remind me of someone I used to be, before all of this." Soo-min's eyes filled with tears. "I cannot accept that, sir. I cannot. It is too much. The surgery alone costs—" "I know what it costs. I do not care what it costs." He stepped closer, and for the first time, his voice gentled. "You have been carrying this alone for 10 years. Carrying a pregnancy alone on top of everything else. Let someone help you." "But why? You do not even know me." Jae-won looked at her for a long moment, and there was something in his eyes that made her breath catch. "I would like to," he said quietly, "if you will let me. Remember to hit that subscribe button if you are enjoying this story. Leave a like too. It really helps the channel. Now let us continue." The surgery was scheduled for the following month. Soo-min tried to argue, to negotiate, to at least set up some kind of payment plan. Jae-won refused every attempt. The money, he said, was nothing to him, less than nothing. What mattered was that the old woman would live and that Soo-min could focus on her pregnancy without slowly killing herself with stress and exhaustion. In the weeks leading up to the surgery, everything changed. Jae-won began coming home earlier. He would sit in the kitchen while Soo-min cooked, asking her questions about her life, her past, her hopes for the future. He told her about his own history, about growing up in the shadow of his father's violence, about clawing his way to the top of an organization he sometimes hated. They talked for hours. He learned about the night she had met her child's father, about how Marcus, that was his name, had treated her like a person instead of part of the furniture, about how they had talked about everything and nothing until the sun came up, about how she had felt, for those few hours, like she had finally found someone who truly saw her. "You loved him," Jae-won said one evening. It was not a question. Soo-min was quiet for a moment. "I barely knew him," she said finally. "But I think I could have, if we had had more time. There was something between us. Something that felt bigger than one night. Do you wish you could find him?" She placed a hand on her rounded stomach. "Sometimes. This child deserves to know their father. And Marcus, he deserves to know he has a child. But he is somewhere in America. I do not even know his last name. Just Marcus. Just one perfect night. And now this." She looked down at her belly with such tenderness that Jae-won felt his heart constrict. "But this baby is not a burden," she continued. "This baby is a gift. The only piece of that night I get to keep." Secretary Yoon watched these developments with growing concern. "Sir," he said one evening when Soo-min had retired to her room, "I feel I should remind you of the risks of involvement with household staff." Jae-won did not look up from his book. What risks would those be? She could be a plant, a spy from another organization, someone sent to gather information or create a vulnerability. She is not. "With respect, sir." "How can you be certain?" Jae-won finally raised his eyes. "Because I know. I have read every report. I have watched her every move. I have spoken to her every day for weeks. Park Soo-min is exactly what she appears to be. A good person in an impossible situation, a pregnant woman with no support, someone doing her best to survive, and that is precisely what a well-trained operative would appear to be. Secretary Yoon. Jae-won's voice hardened. "I appreciate your concern, but this matter is not up for discussion. Is that understood?" Secretary Yoon bowed stiffly. "Understood, sir," but he did not stop watching. And he was not the only one. The surgery was a success. Soo-min received the call from the hospital while she was cleaning the living room. She answered on the second ring, her heart in her throat, and listened as the doctor explained that the procedure had gone perfectly. Yoon-ji was recovering well. She would need rest and rehabilitation, but her prognosis was excellent. Soo-min hung up the phone and burst into tears. That was how Jae-won found her. Collapsed on his designer sofa, sobbing into her hands. her pregnant belly now impossible to hide in her emotional state. He stood in the doorway for a moment, uncertain, then crossed the room and sat beside her. "Good news or bad?" he asked. "Good." She looked up at him, her face wet and shining. "Good news. She is going to be okay. Because of you, she is going to be okay." Before she could stop herself, before she could think about what she was doing, she threw her arms around him. Jae-won went rigid. When was the last time someone had embraced him? Not for show, not for manipulation, but simply because they were happy and wanted to share that happiness with him. He could not remember. Slowly, hesitantly, he wrapped his arms around her. She was warm and soft and real, and she smelled like the kitchen and the cleaning products she used and something else, something that was just her. He closed his eyes and let himself hold her, let himself be held, and felt something inside him that had been frozen for years begin to thaw. Soo-min pulled back suddenly, horror dawning on her face. "I am so sorry, sir. I am so sorry. That was completely inappropriate. I should not have." "Jae-won," she blinked. "What?" "My name is Jae-won. You can use it. I could not possibly. You just hugged me. I think we are past formal titles." A surprised laugh escaped her, and she quickly covered her mouth. "I really am sorry. I was just so happy, and you were there, and—" "Soo-min." He reached out and gently lowered her hand from her face. "Do not apologize for being happy. Do not apologize for showing emotion. In this house, with me, you do not have to be anyone other than who you are." She stared at him. This man who commanded armies of criminals, who had killed and ordered killings, whose name made grown men tremble with fear, and all she could see was the lonely boy in the photograph, the one whose mother had died because his father did not think she was worth saving. "Thank you," she whispered, "for everything. You do not need to thank me. I do. No one has ever—" She trailed off, shaking her head. "You are not what I expected, Jae-won. Neither are you." They sat in silence for a moment, the space between them charged with something new, something neither of them was ready to name. Finally, Soo-min stood. I should finish cleaning." Jae-won nodded, but as she walked away, he called out, "Soo-min." She turned. "Would you like to have dinner with me tonight? Not as employee and employer, just dinner." Her heart skipped a beat. Yes, I would like that." He smiled, a real smile that transformed his face, and Soo-min felt the ground shift beneath her feet. She was falling for him, and she was terrified. Dinner became a regular occurrence. Every evening after her work was done, Soo-min would change into something nicer than her cleaning uniform and join Jae-won in the dining room. Sometimes Secretary Yoon would have food prepared. Sometimes they would order in. Sometimes Soo-min would make something herself, and Jae-won would watch her with an expression that made her cheeks warm. They talked about everything. Soo-min told him about her parents, about the accident, about the years of loneliness before Yoon-ji found her. She told him about Ha-eun, about watching her grow, about the fear of not being able to provide for her. She told him about her pregnancy, about the strange mix of terror and joy she felt, about her worries for the future. She told him her dreams, small, practical ones, saving enough money for a real apartment, sending Ha-eun to a good school, giving her unborn child a stable life, growing old surrounded by people she loved. Jae-won told her things he had never told anyone. He told her about the day he took over the syndicate, the blood on his hands that had never quite washed clean. He told her about the nightmares that still haunted him, the faces of people he had hurt, the weight of every decision he had ever made. He told her about the isolation of leadership, about how every relationship in his life was transactional, how he had forgotten what it felt like to be truly known. "You are the first person who has looked at me without fear," he said one night. "Everyone else sees the title, the power, the danger. You see, I do not know what you see. I see a man," Soo-min said simply, "a complicated man who has done terrible things and carries the weight of them. A man who could have let his past destroy him but did not. A man who saved my grandmother's life for no reason, except that he could. I had reasons. Did you?" He looked at her across the table, candles flickering between them, and felt his carefully constructed walls crumble a little more. "I am falling in love with you," he said. The words hung in the air. Soo-min's breath caught. "Jae-won, I know I should not. I know this cannot end well. I know that my world is dangerous and dark, and that you deserve someone who can give you a normal life, someone who can help you raise your child without putting you in danger. But I cannot stop it. I tried. I cannot." Soo-min stood slowly and walked around the table. She lowered herself carefully beside his chair, mindful of her belly, and took his hands in hers. "I am not asking for normal," she said. "I am not asking for safe. I am just asking for you, whatever that means, whatever that brings. You do not know what you are saying. The syndicate, my enemies, the constant danger. I know exactly what I am saying." She reached up and touched his face, and he leaned into her palm like a man dying of thirst who had finally found water. I have been surviving my whole life, J1. For once, I want to live, and when I am with you, I feel alive. But the baby will have a mother who loves them, and maybe a father figure who will love them too, if you want that. J1's eyes glistened with something that might have been tears. I want that, he whispered. I want that more than I have ever wanted anything. He kissed her. It was gentle at first, tentative, as if he was afraid she would shatter. But she pulled him closer, and the kiss deepened, and all the walls they had built around themselves came crashing down. When they finally separated, both breathless, J1 rested his forehead against hers. This changes everything, he said. There will be people who try to use you against me, people who will see you as a weakness. Then we will face them together. He laughed, a sound of pure wonder. How are you so brave? I am not brave. I am just too stubborn to be afraid. He kissed her again, one hand coming to rest gently on her pregnant belly, feeling the slight movement of the child within. And this time, neither of them held back. The news spread through the syndicate like wildfire. The Phantom of Gangnam had taken a lover, not a socialite, not a power player, a pregnant housekeeper, a nobody from nowhere with no connections and no leverage. The reaction was mixed. Some of J1's men thought it was weakness, proof that their leader had gone soft. They whispered in corners and exchanged meaningful glances, wondering if perhaps it was time for new leadership. Others saw it differently. They had watched J1 for years, had served him loyally, had seen the toll that isolation was taking. If this woman made him happy, if she gave him something to fight for beyond mere power, then perhaps she was exactly what he needed. Secretary Yoon fell somewhere in between. He had been with the Kang family since Jaewon's father was in charge. He had watched Jaewon grow from a beaten child into a ruthless leader. He had seen many things, but he had never seen his employer smile the way he smiled when Park Soo-min was in the room. You are worried, Jaewon said one morning, catching Secretary Yoon's expression. It is not my place to be worried, sir. It is your place to speak freely. You always have. Secretary Yoon hesitated, then nodded. I am worried that your feelings for her make you vulnerable. I am worried that your enemies will see her as a target, and I am worried that if something happens to her, it will destroy you in ways that none of them ever could. Jaewon was silent for a moment. You are right to worry, he said finally, but I have spent my entire life being careful. I have calculated every risk, eliminated every weakness, trusted no one. And do you know what it got me? Power, control, survival, loneliness, emptiness, a life that was not worth living. He turned to face his secretary fully. She makes me want to be better. She makes me believe I can be better. And she is carrying a child who will need protection, who will need a family. I will not give any of that up. Not for safety, not for anything. Secretary Yoon bowed his head. Then I will do everything in my power to protect her and the child. For you. Thank you, old friend. Spring turned to summer, and summer to fall, and Soo-min's belly grew round and full with promise. She moved out of the small service quarters and into Jaewon's bedroom. She no longer worked as a housekeeper, instead spending her days visiting Yoonji and Ha-eun, who had been relocated to a nicer apartment closer to good schools and hospitals. The little girl adored Jaewon. She called him Uncle Boss and demanded piggyback rides whenever he visited. He pretended to be annoyed, but Soo-min caught him smiling every time, saw the way his eyes softened when Ha-eun laughed. And when Ha-eun asked about Soo-min's big belly, about the baby growing inside, Jaewon was the one who knelt down and explained. Your aunt is going to have a baby, he said gently. And when that baby comes, they are going to need a big cousin to help take care of them. Do you think you can do that? Ha-eun nodded solemnly. I will teach the baby everything, how to draw, how to count, how to eat ice cream without making a mess. That is a very important skill, Jaewon agreed. Soo-min watched them together and felt her heart overflow. Yoonji was more cautious. He is dangerous, she said to Soo-min during one of their visits. Ha-eun was napping in the other room. I have heard the stories about his family, about what they do. I know what he is, Grandma. Do you? Because the girl I raised, the one who worked 3 jobs to buy my medicine, that girl knew better than to fall in love with monsters. And now she is carrying a child and planning to raise it with such a man. Soo-min took Yoonji's weathered hand. He is not a monster. He has done monstrous things, yes, but he is also kind and gentle and lonely, and desperately trying to be better. He loves this baby already, Grandma. He talks to my belly every night. He reads parenting books when he thinks I am not looking. Does everyone not deserve the chance to be better? Yoonji sighed. You sound like me 40 years ago. I said the same things about your grandfather, and you loved him until the day he died. I did, but loving him was the hardest thing I ever did. It nearly broke me a dozen times. She squeezed Soo-min's hand. I do not want that for you or for this baby. Maybe some things are worth being broken for, Su-min said softly, and this baby will know nothing but love. I will make sure of it. Yoon-ji looked at her, this girl she had raised, this woman she had watched become strong and compassionate and stubborn beyond reason, and she saw something she had not expected. Happiness. Just be careful, she said finally, and if he ever hurts you, I do not care how many soldiers he commands. I will find a way to hurt him back. Su-min laughed and hugged her. I know you will, Grandma. I know you will. The trouble began in winter. A rival organization, the Hwang clan, had been pushing into Baekho territory for months. Jaewon had responded with measured force, trying to avoid all-out war. But the Hwangs were hungry, ambitious, and reckless, and their leader, Hwang Jun-sik, was looking for any advantage. He found it in Park Su-min. The Phantom has a woman, Jun-sik said to his lieutenants, spreading photographs across the table. A pregnant nobody, a cleaner. And from what my sources tell me, he is obsessed with her. What are you suggesting? Asked his second-in-command. Jun-sik smiled. It was not a pleasant expression. I'm suggesting that we give Kang Jae-won a reason to stop being so careful, a reason to make mistakes, a reason to destroy himself. You want to take her? I want to break him. Taking her is just the method. The plan was set in motion. Su-min was leaving the hospital when they grabbed her. She was 8 months pregnant now, moving slowly, one hand always resting on her massive belly. Yoon-ji had had a follow-up appointment, and everything was perfect. The old woman was healthier than she had been in years. Su-min was walking to her car, head down, checking her phone for messages from Jaewon, when a van screeched up beside her. She did not even have time to scream. Strong arms grabbed her. A hand clamped over her mouth, and she was thrown into the back of the vehicle. The doors slammed shut. The van sped away. It all happened in less than 30 seconds. Jaewon got the call 20 minutes later. He was in a meeting with his financial advisors, discussing legitimate business investments, when Secretary Yoon burst through the door. One look at his face told Jaewon everything he needed to know. What happened? His voice was ice. Miss Park, she has been taken. The temperature in the room seemed to drop by 10 degrees. The financial advisors, civilians who had no idea who they were really working for, shifted uncomfortably. Leave us, Jaewon said. They did not need to be told twice. When the door closed, Jaewon stood. Who? Hwang Jun-sik. He is claiming responsibility. He is demanding. Secretary Yoon swallowed. He is demanding your territories. All of them, in exchange for her life. And the babies. Jaewon's hands curled into fists so tight his knuckles went white. Where is she? We are working on it. Our people are. I want every resource we have on this. Every contact. Every informant, every soldier. I want Hwang Jun-sik found, and I want him to know exactly what happens to people who touch what is mine. Sir, if we mobilize that aggressively, there will be war. Then there will be war. Secretary Yoon had never seen his employer like this. Kang Jae-won was known for his cold calculation, his strategic patience, his ability to wait and plan and execute flawlessly. This man, this creature of rage and terror, was something else entirely. Find her, Jaewon said, his voice dropping to a whisper that was somehow more frightening than any scream. Find her, or I will burn this city to the ground looking for her myself. Su-min woke in darkness. Her head throbbed. When she tried to move, she realized her hands were bound in front of her. She was lying on a cold, concrete floor in what appeared to be a warehouse or industrial building. Dim light filtered through grimy windows high above. Her first thought was not of herself. Her hands flew to her belly, and she nearly sobbed with relief when she felt the baby kick. Strong, alive, angry at the rough treatment perhaps, but unharmed. I am here, she whispered. I am here, little one. We are going to be okay. She was not alone. A man stood across the room watching her. He was middle-aged, well-dressed, with an air of smug satisfaction that made her stomach turn. Ah, she is awake, he said, approaching her. Park Su-min, the pregnant woman who captured the Phantom's heart. I must say, I expected someone more impressive. Su-min forced herself to stay calm. Panicking would not help. Crying would not help. She needed to think. She needed to protect her baby. Who are you? She asked, pleased that her voice came out steady. Hwang Jun-sik. I am sure your boyfriend has mentioned me. He has not. Jun-sik's smile faltered slightly. No? How disappointing. I will have to make a more memorable impression then. He crouched down beside her, and Su-min resisted the urge to flinch away. Here is how this is going to work. I am going to send a message to Kang Jae-won. He is going to hand over his territories, his operations, everything. And when he does, I will let you go, both of you. Simple. He will not do it. Oh, I think he will. From what I have heard, you are quite special to him. And that baby, well, that makes the leverage even better, does it not? Su Min shook her head. You do not understand. He will not give up his organization. Not for me. Not for anyone. He cannot. The syndicate is not just his property. It is his responsibility. Thousands of people depend on him. He cannot hand that over to someone like you. Jun-sik's face darkened. Someone like me? Someone who would use a pregnant woman as a bargaining chip. Someone who has no honor. The slap came fast and hard, snapping her head to the side. Su Min tasted blood. She curled protectively around her belly, shielding it from any further blows. You should be more careful how you speak to me, Jun-sik said coldly. I do not need you in perfect condition. A few broken bones will still get my message across. And that baby? Well, there are two of you to hurt now, are there not? Terror clawed at Su Min's heart, but she forced herself to look up at him, to meet his eyes. You have already lost, she said. You just do not know it yet. Jae-won received the ransom video 12 hours after Su Min's kidnapping. It showed her tied to a chair, a fresh bruise blooming on her cheek, her pregnant belly straining against her clothes. Jun-sik stood beside her, delivering his demands with theatrical smugness, but it was Su Min who captured Jae-won's attention. In the middle of Jun-sik's speech, while his back was turned, Su Min looked directly at the camera. Her eyes moved deliberately, left, right, up, down, left, left. Then she blinked rapidly, 3 times, paused, 2 times, paused, 5 times. A code, 325, an address system they had developed together, half as a joke, half as a precaution. She was telling him where she was. Jae-won's heart surged with pride and relief. His clever, brave, impossible woman. I know where she is, he said. Secretary Yoon looked up from his phone. How? She told me. He did not explain further. There was not time. The assault on Huang's warehouse was swift and brutal. Jae-won led it personally, something he had not done in years. His men had begged him to stay back, to let them handle it, but he refused. This was about more than territory or power. This was about Su Min. This was about his child. They hit the building from 3 sides at once. Jun-sik's guards, expecting negotiation rather than attack, were overwhelmed within minutes. Jae-won moved through the chaos like a wraith, his gun finding targets with cold precision. He found Jun-sik in the main room, using Su Min as a shield, a knife pressed to her throat. Stay back! Jun-sik screamed. I will kill her. I swear to God I will. Jae-won. Su Min's voice was calm. He is terrified. His hand is shaking. She was right. Jae-won could see the tremor in Jun-sik's grip, could see the wild fear in his eyes. The man had expected to negotiate from a position of power. He had never imagined that Kang Jae-won would come for him personally. Let her go, Jae-won said, and I will make it quick. You do not give the orders here. I am in control. Su Min moved. She dropped her weight suddenly, twisting away from the knife as much as her belly would allow, and Jun-sik, startled, lost his grip on her. In the split second that followed, Jae-won raised his gun and fired. The bullet caught Jun-sik in the shoulder, spinning him around. He crumpled to the ground, screaming in pain. Jae-won was at Su Min's side in an instant, cutting her bonds, pulling her into his arms. She was shaking, finally, the adrenaline fading and the terror catching up. I have got you, he whispered. I have got you. You are safe, both of you. His hand found her belly, and he nearly collapsed with relief when he felt the baby kick against his palm. I knew you would come, she said. Always. I will always come for you. Behind them, Jun-sik groaned. You have not won. My family. They will retaliate. They will. Jae-won turned, keeping Su Min behind him. He looked down at the man who had dared to take what was his, who had dared to threaten his child, and there was no mercy in his eyes. Your family will receive what is left of you as a warning, he said, and if any of them ever threatens her or this baby again, I will personally erase your entire bloodline from existence. He raised the gun. Su Min grabbed his arm. Don't. Jae-won looked at her, confused. He hurt you. He threatened our baby. He was going to kill you both. I know. But if you execute him like this, you will start a war that might never end. His family will have to retaliate to save face. More people will die. More blood will be spilled. Our child will grow up surrounded by violence. She cupped his face in her hands. You are better than this. Be better than this. For me. For our baby. The war inside Jae-won was visible on his face. Every instinct screamed for blood, for vengeance, for the violent justice that had defined his entire life. But she was looking at him with such faith, such belief that he could choose differently. For her, he could be different. For their child, he could be different. He lowered the gun. Take him, he said to his men. Keep him alive. We will negotiate with his family from a position of strength. As Jun-sik was dragged away, Jae-won pulled Soo-min close again. "You are going to be the death of me," he murmured. "Or the saving of you," she replied. "I prefer that option." He laughed despite everything, kissed her forehead, held her like he would never let go. The aftermath of the kidnapping changed everything. The Hwang clan, faced with the evidence of June 6's foolishness and the very real threat of Jae-won's wrath, negotiated a surrender. Their territories were absorbed into Baekho operations, but the bloodshed that Soo-min had feared was avoided. In the syndicate, Soo-min's role changed as well. She was no longer just Jae-won's lover. She had become something else, a symbol, a moral compass. The men who had initially dismissed her as a weakness began to see her differently. She had been captured, threatened, hurt while 8 months pregnant, and she had still managed to communicate vital information to her partner. She had talked Jae-won down from executing an enemy, potentially saving hundreds of lives on both sides. She was strong, she was clever, and she had the ear of the most powerful man in Korean organized crime. "They respect you," Jae-won told her one evening as they stood on the penthouse balcony watching the lights of Seoul. "My men, they have started calling you the Heart." Soo-min laughed. "That is ridiculous, is it? You have changed things, Soo-min. You have changed me." She leaned into him, and he wrapped his arms around her from behind, his hands resting on her belly. "I did not do anything except love you. That is everything." They stood in comfortable silence for a while, watching the city pulse with life below them, and then Soo-min gasped. Jae-won tensed immediately. "What is it? What is wrong?" She looked up at him, her eyes wide. "My water just broke." The next several hours were a blur of panic and preparation. Jae-won, the man who had faced assassins and rivals without flinching, was reduced to a trembling mess as Soo-min labored. He held her hand through every contraction, wiped the sweat from her brow, told her she was strong, so strong, the strongest person he had ever known. And when the baby finally came, screaming into the world with a voice that seemed impossibly loud for someone so small, Jae-won wept. It was a boy. A perfect, beautiful boy with dark skin that spoke of his African-American heritage and eyes that were unmistakably Asian. Eyes that looked exactly like Jae-won's, though that was impossible. Eyes that seemed to hold ancient wisdom and newborn wonder all at once. "He is beautiful," Soo-min whispered, exhausted but radiant. Our son, Jae-won repeated, and the word felt like a prayer. He held the baby in his arms, this tiny creature who was not his by blood but was his in every way that mattered, and felt his heart crack open in ways he had never thought possible. "I will protect you," he whispered to the sleeping infant. "I will love you. I will be the father you deserve. I swear it." Soo-min watched them together, the feared crime lord and the newborn baby, and felt peace settle over her like a blanket. They named him Min-jun. It meant clever and talented in Korean, and also gentle and kind. It was perfect. The first year of Min-jun's life was one of discovery and transformation. Jae-won, who had never imagined himself as a father, threw himself into the role with an intensity that surprised everyone, including himself. He was there for every feeding, every diaper change, every late-night cry. He read parenting books like they were military strategy manuals. He baby-proofed the penthouse with the same thoroughness he brought to securing his business operations. And Min-jun, against all expectations, thrived. He was a happy baby, quick to laugh, slow to cry. He had his mother's gentle nature and something else. Something that reminded Soo-min of the man she had met for one magical night, a curiosity about the world that seemed to burn in his dark eyes. "He looks like his biological father," Soo-min said one evening, watching Jae-won rock Min-jun to sleep. "Sometimes I see Marcus in his face, in the way he tilts his head when he is thinking." "Does that bother you?" Jae-won asked quietly. "That he is not, that I am not? You are his father," Soo-min said firmly. "Not by blood, but by choice, by love, by every night you have spent walking the floors with him, by every morning you have woken up to feed him, by every moment you have been there. That is what makes a father." Jae-won looked down at the baby in his arms, at the dark skin and Asian eyes, at this impossible, beautiful child who had given his life meaning he never knew he was missing. "I love him," he said simply, "more than I ever thought I could love anything. I know, and I love you. I know that too." She crossed the room and settled beside him, leaning her head on his shoulder as they both watched their son sleep. "Do you ever wonder about him?" Jae-won asked. "Marcus, the man who, sometimes," Soo-min admitted. "I hope he is happy wherever he is. I hope his life is good, but I do not regret how things turned out. This is where I am supposed to be." Marcus Thompson had not stopped thinking about her. In Atlanta, in his small apartment that had grown even smaller with restlessness, He stared at the photograph he had carried for nearly 2 years. The woman from the gala, the woman from the garden, the woman who had talked with him until sunrise and then disappeared from his life. Su Min. He did not even know her last name, had spent months trying to find her through every channel he could think of. The charity that had hosted the gala had no records of the serving staff. The catering companies he contacted had no one by that name. It was as if she had been a dream, but the ache in his chest told him she was real. His grandmother had noticed the change in him. "You have been different since that trip to Korea," she said one evening. "Different how?" she had asked. Different like a man who left something important behind. He could not explain it to her, could not explain how one night with a stranger had shifted something fundamental in his soul, how he had felt for those few hours. Like he had finally found someone who truly saw him. He had tried to move on, dated other women, focused on work, told himself that one magical night did not mean anything real, but the memory would not fade. If anything, it grew stronger. And now, nearly 2 years later, he had made a decision. He was going back to Korea. He was going to find her, whatever it took. Min-jun was 18 months old when everything changed again. Jae-won had taken him to the park, something he did often now. Despite Secretary Yoon's concerns about security, he wanted his son to have a normal childhood, or as normal as possible given the circumstances. He wanted Min-jun to play in the sunshine, to laugh with other children, to know that the world was not all shadows and secrets. They were sitting on a bench, Min-jun babbling happily as he watched the other children play. When Jae-won felt eyes on him, he turned, his instincts screaming danger, and saw a man standing at the edge of the park. Tall, athletic build, dark brown skin, American from the look of him. The man was staring at Min-jun with an expression of shock and confusion, and then he was walking toward them. Jae-won stood, positioning himself between the stranger and his son. "Can I help you?" he asked, his voice cold. The man stopped a few feet away. His eyes kept darting to Min-jun, to his dark skin, to his Asian eyes. "I am sorry," the man said. His voice was shaking. "I do not mean to bother you. It is just your son. He looks like—" He trailed off, shaking his head. "Never mind. I am sorry. I am losing my mind." He turned to leave, but Min-jun, who had been watching the stranger with curious eyes, suddenly reached out his small arms and spoke a word he had never said before. "Daddy." Everyone froze. Jae-won felt the blood drain from his face. The stranger turned slowly, his eyes wide with disbelief. "What did he say?" "Daddy," Min-jun said again, straining toward the stranger. "Daddy! Daddy!" Jae-won's mind raced. Min-jun had never called him daddy, not once. He called him Appa, the Korean word for father. He had been saying Appa for months. So why was he calling this stranger daddy? Unless— no, it was impossible. "Who are you?" Jae-won demanded. The man's face had gone pale. "My name is Marcus. Marcus Thompson. I was in Seoul about 2 years ago. I met a woman at a gala. Her name was Su Min. We spent one night together, and then I had to leave, and I have been trying to find her ever since." The world tilted beneath Jae-won's feet. "I think," Marcus said, his voice breaking, "I think that might be my son." The conversation that followed was the hardest of Jae-won's life. He took Marcus back to the penthouse, called Su Min, and watched as the woman he loved came face to face with the man she had never expected to see again, the father of her child. Su Min. Marcus breathed when he saw her. "I found you. I finally found you, Marcus." She looked like she had seen a ghost. "What are you? How did you—" "I never stopped looking. I came back to Korea to find you, and then I saw him at the park. I saw Min-jun, and I knew before he even spoke. Those are my grandmother's eyes. That is my father's chin. He is your son," Su Min said quietly. "I did not know how to find you. I did not even know your last name. By the time I realized I was pregnant, you were gone." Marcus sank into a chair, his head in his hands. "I have a son," he said. "I have a son, and I missed everything. His first steps, his first words, his first—" "You did not know," Su Min said gently. "There was no way you could have known." But Jae-won stood apart from them, watching this reunion with ice in his veins. He had known this was possible. Somewhere in the back of his mind, he had always known that Min-jun's biological father might appear someday. But he had let himself forget, let himself believe that he was Min-jun's real father in every way that mattered. And now here was Marcus Thompson, with his connection to Min-jun that went deeper than love or choice or commitment. Here was biology, here was blood, here was something Jae-won could never compete with. "What happens now?" Marcus asked, looking between them. "I want to be part of his life. I need to be part of his life. He is my son. He is my son too," Jae-won said quietly. Marcus looked at him, really looked at him for the first time. "Who are you?" he asked. What are you to them? I am the man who has raised Minjun since he was born, the man who has loved him and protected him and been there for every moment of his life, the man who changed his diapers at 3 in the morning and walked the floors when he had colic and cried when he took his first steps. His voice hardened. I am his father. Marcus stood slowly. You are not his father. I am his father. Biology. Biology is an accident. Jaewon cut him off. Love is a choice. I have chosen that boy every single day of his life. What have you done? I did not know he existed, and that is not your fault. But it does not change the fact that I am the one who has been here. I am the one who has raised him. I am the one he knows as Appa. Then why did he call me Daddy? Marcus demanded. Why did he reach for me, a complete stranger, and call me Daddy if some part of him does not know who I am? Jaewon had no answer for that. Neither did Soo-min. Stop, she said, suddenly stepping between them. Both of you, stop. She took a deep breath. This is not about either of you. This is about Min-jun, about what is best for him. And what is best for him is not watching two men who love him tear each other apart. She looked at Marcus. You have every right to be in his life. He is your son. I should have tried harder to find you. I should have. You could not have known, Marcus said. I disappeared. That is on me. She looked at Jaewon. And you have every right to be his father. You are his father, not by blood, but by everything else that matters. Nothing will ever change that. She took both of their hands. Min-jun is lucky, she said. Most children have two parents who love them. He has 3. We can either see that as a problem, or we can see it as a gift. She looked between them. So what is it going to be? The months that followed were not easy. Marcus stayed in Seoul, taking a leave of absence from his job to be close to his son. He rented an apartment nearby and spent as much time as Jaewon would allow with Min-jun, learning his favorite foods, his bedtime routines, the songs that made him laugh. It was awkward at first, painful sometimes. Jaewon struggled with jealousy, with the fear that Marcus would somehow replace him in Min-jun's heart. Marcus struggled with the missed time, the 18 months of memories he could never get back. But slowly, gradually, something shifted. Jaewon saw the way Marcus lit up when Min-jun ran to him, saw the wonder in his eyes when Min-jun said new words or learned new things, saw the love that was so clearly genuine, so clearly deep. And Marcus saw the bond between Jaewon and Min-jun, saw how the boy looked to Jaewon for comfort, saw how Jaewon knew every cue, every preference, every tiny detail of his son's personality. He really is your son, Marcus said one evening. They were on the balcony, watching the sunset, while Soo-min put Min-jun to bed inside, not just by choice, in his heart. He looks at you like you hung the moon. Jaewon was quiet for a moment. He is your son too, he said finally. The words cost him something, but they were true. He has your curiosity, your laugh, that stubborn tilt of his chin when he does not get his way. Marcus smiled slightly. My grandmother always said I was stubborn. It is not a bad quality. It will serve him well. They stood in silence for a while. I do not know how to do this, Marcus admitted. Share him. Watch someone else be his father. It goes against every instinct I have. I know, Jaewon said. I feel the same. Every time he runs to you, part of me wants to grab him and never let go. So what do we do? Jaewon turned to face him. We do what Soo-min said. We see it as a gift instead of a problem. We give him 3 parents who love him instead of 2 who are at war. He offered his hand. I cannot promise it will be easy. I cannot promise I will not struggle, but I can promise that I will try. For Min-jun. Marcus looked at his hand for a long moment, then he took it. For Min-jun, he agreed. Years passed. Against all odds, they made it work. Marcus eventually moved to Seoul permanently, taking a job with a tech company that allowed him to be close to his son. He and Jaewon would never be best friends, but they developed a grudging respect that gradually warmed into something like brotherhood. Min-jun grew up with 3 parents who adored him, and a little sister who arrived when he was 4. Jaewon and Soo-min's biological daughter, a fierce little girl who inherited her father's intensity and her mother's gentle heart. He learned English from Marcus, and Korean from his Korean family. He understood early on that his family was different, that most children did not have an appa and a daddy and a mother who loved them all, but he never felt ashamed of it. How could he? He was surrounded by love. Ha-eun, now a teenager, became his devoted older cousin. She taught him everything she knew: how to draw, how to play music, how to navigate the complicated world of school and friends and growing up. Yoonji lived to see Min-jun start school. She sat in the front row at his first recital, crying tears of joy as he played a simple song on the piano. When she passed peacefully a few months later, she left behind a legacy of love that continued to ripple outward through everyone she had touched. And Jaewon, under Soo-min's influence, and with Marcus's unexpected support, continued to transform the syndicate. The most violent operations were shut down. Legitimate businesses expanded. The Bayako name became associated with philanthropy as much as power. It was not a fairy tale transformation. There were still compromises, still darkness that had to be navigated, still moments when the past threatened to swallow the future. But they faced it together, all of them. One evening, when Minjun was 6 years old, he sat on the balcony with his 3 parents, watching the sunset paint Seoul in shades of gold and crimson. "Appa," he said, looking at Jae-won. "Why do I have 2 daddies?" Jae-won looked at Marcus, who looked at Soo-min, who smiled. "Because," she said, pulling her son into her lap, "you are very special. You have so much love in your life that one daddy was not enough to contain it all." Minjun considered this. "Is that why Daddy lives in a different house?" "Daddy has his own home," Marcus said, "but he is always here when you need him. Always. And Appa is always here too." Jae-won added, "This is your family, Minjun. Different from other families maybe, but no less real, no less important, no less full of love." Minjun looked at each of them in turn. His mother, beautiful and strong. His Appa, powerful and protective. His daddy, warm and endlessly patient. "I love you," he said, "all of you." And in those words, spoken by a child who had been born into impossible circumstances and raised by 3 people who had found their way through love and pain and compromise, was everything that mattered. "We love you too," they said together. And they did. Forever. The end. If this story touched your heart, do not forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell so you never miss an update. Drop a comment below and tell us what you thought. Until next time.